From the heartland of America and the gateway to the West, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm George Norrie. This is Coast to Coast AM. Later tonight, a night of mystery. Here's what's happening. More weather, wet weather, expected to continue to pound waterlogged California with evacuation orders and advisories in place. And tornado warnings were issued by the National Weather Service with small hail possible. Offices warning about lightning and sharing images of flooding and damages from sinkholes. It's a mess out there in California. Republicans in the House of Representatives will vote on a bill that would abolish the Internal Revenue Service, eliminate the national income tax, and replace it with a national consumption tax. The House will be voting on Georgia Republican Representative Buddy Carter's reintroduced Fair Tax Act that aims to reel in the IRS and remove the national income tax as well as other taxes. Charles Koppis, investment advisor, with us. Charles, is this going to have any teeth? What do you think?
One could only hope so, George. I mean, it's got to go through the Senate and, of course, the White House. But, you know, Biden passed last August the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act, so-called, and this included the hiring of 87,000 new IRS agents, which we know of. And so the House Republicans today, they voted on to repeal this provision. And even further, House Republicans now, the Freedom Caucus there, is trying to introduce the Fair Tax Act. Now, this would be interesting, George, because it's actually abolishing the IRS and replacing it with a national consumption tax. I mean, you have to think, what did we do before 1913? How did we pay for the government? It was through indirect excise taxes, things like that. I actually write about it in my book. But this is a consumption tax. It's like a point of sale. It'd be a lot more fair. It's like most state taxes. I think 45 states or more have a state tax. And it would simplify the tax system or the tax code, which we can't make sense of anyway. And this bill would get rid of the personal corporate payroll, death, gift tax, and so on. It just makes it more fair. 40% right now don't pay any tax at all, 72 million. So, you know, but Congress likes it. It's a blunt object. They went after the Tea Party. Remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. But would the president sign this if it gets to his desk?
It's not. It's doubtful. I mean, he could have some pressure put on him, his own party. I mean, there are some Democrats who might sign on to it. But, you know, look, this is part of the second plank of the Communist Manifesto for a heavy graduated income tax. I don't think people know that. And it just creates class warfare, the politics of greed and envy like we see in America. And, you know, Reagan once said the Republicans celebrate July 4th and the Democrats celebrate April 15th. And we're in that tax season. I'm even tomorrow. I'm a tax donkey. I have to make quarterly tax payments. So, you know, we're just reminded of this. This would be very fair. Some countries have a flat tax, like Hong Kong, Saudi Arabia, something that makes a little more sense than the convoluted, incomprehensible tax code that we have today. So I hope they do it.
This will be interesting to watch, Charles. Thank you so much. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission considering a ban on gas stoves as concerns surrounding indoor air pollutants from the appliances continue to rise. Bloomberg reported that the agency plans to act on all appliances with gas because the pollutants can cause respiratory and health issues. The U.S. Armed Forces intend to start training Ukrainian soldiers on the sophisticated Patriot missile system next week at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. The training is expected to take several months, though it will still be an expedited process in comparison to how long it normally takes. Here's Dr. John Curtis, onlinecolumnist.com. John, is this a good idea, or is this just going to keep things going?
George, this is a major escalation as far as the Russian. I don't know if you heard Dmitry Peskov from the Kremlin today saying that, you know, the new weaponry that is being provided, you know, by the U.S. and NATO, this war in Ukraine by the Kremlin is no longer seen as a war between the Ukraine and the Kremlin. It's seen as a war between the U.S. and NATO and the Kremlin. So it's a major escalation. It's not going to change the battlefield at all. You know that Patriot missile batteries are fixed. They're not mobile. They're designed to protect municipalities and not to be moved around. So it's not going to change anything. The idea that we're training Ukrainians in the United States, like 100 of them that are coming to Fort Sill in Oklahoma, is pretty shocking. But I think that the public needs to get a little bit more of a picture on what this war is about. This is a proxy war, okay, where the U.S. is funding the Ukrainian government, basically, to pay its bills, it's bankrupt, and the war to fight the Kremlin. Now, does anybody with their right mind believe that the U.S. and Ukraine are going to topple the Russian Federation? That's the operative theme from the Biden White House and from Zelensky in Kiev. And the statement that Zelensky made to a joint session of Congress on the 21st of December was that we're not a charity case, even though we're up to $50 billion right now. Ukraine is an investment in protecting democracy in Europe. Now, I don't know about you, but I mean, when you hear this kind of claptrap, this kind of nonsense, NATO is there to protect democracy or freedom against a potential Russian assault, not an impoverished, war-stricken country like Ukraine. So I think the big picture here for people to realize is the longer this war goes, the more the treasury is depleted, the more inflation we see around the globe, and the more Ukraine is being blown to bits and bombed into the Stone Age. And you heard Zelensky on the Golden Globes tonight, if you can believe this, with Sean Penn, giving him access, saying that we're going to win the war and drive all the Russians out of Ukraine in 2023. Now, if you believe that, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn that's still for sale that I can sell you. So the bottom line is we better wake up before it's too late, that this war is going nowhere, and it is costing the U.S. taxpayers dearly.
It's got to come to an end. They got to negotiate this. Thank you, John. Up next, astrologer Susan Miller joins us. We're going to look at the year ahead and also your astrological signs next on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you. Susan Miller back with us. Susan is an internationally known author, columnist, entrepreneur, publisher, and pioneer of the Internet. She is the respected founder of astrologyzone.com. She's a highly respected astrological thinker and is recognized worldwide for her astrological writings outside of the box into areas of business, technology, lifestyle, culture, and economy. Susan's monthly forecast published on her website and on her app, Daily Horoscope Astrology Zone, and more by Susan Miller are celebrated worldwide. Readers love Susan's accuracy and reporting to current planetary trends, and Susan is the author of 12 astrological books. Is that what we're at, Susan, or do you have more now?
I think there's more.
They keep adding up.
Astrology Zone is now 27 years on the net as of December 14th.
Good for you. How did you get involved in all of this?
I was born with a terrible birth defect, and I grew up in hospitals. And because the equipment back then wasn't quite as good as it is now, the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I would get attacks from time to time, and I'd be in excruciating pain, have to go to bed for 6 to 8 weeks. Couldn't move an inch in the bed. Doctors thought I was making it up. My parents knew I was telling the truth. They saw it. And finally, they went in. When I was 14 years old, they operated on me, and I was in the hospital a year. In my life, I've had 40 blood transfusions. They found out that my veins and arteries were terribly malformed in the left leg. And just being excited for Santa Claus on my birthday would make them break open, and I'd start bleeding internally. So this was a big ordeal. I couldn't go to high school, but I did go to college. I had homeschool because the Board of Education works with kids like this. And my mother was such an inspiration for me. She was always so positive and always so cheerful. And, for a while there, I didn't know if I'd even get to keep the leg. Oh, yes, you will. She knew astrology, and I begged her to teach me, and she kept saying, no, you have to study for 12 years. You won't be any good. I said, I love you. I'll do whatever you tell me to do. Finally, I wore her down, and I studied astrology, but I majored in business in college. This was something that was supposed to be a secret between my mother and I, but it sort of got out because I was reading charts for friends after she told me I was ready, and I was in the advertising world. I was an agent for commercial photographers who would shoot the ads. And then creative people love astrology because it shows them how they can make their life more interesting, richer, happier, push the borders of your life back, and make your life bigger. And so I was getting lots of practice. I never charged for the charts, not until 20 years later. So I'm glad I know it. It can really help you plan because, time goes through your fingers.
Absolutely. I think it's made you a better astrologer, Susan.
Yeah, I love hearing the feedback from everybody. It's great when the readers write to me. Their questions teach me things. And I'm on Twitter and Discord and Instagram and Facebook. Susan Miller's Astrology Zone on Facebook, but otherwise just Astrology Zone on the others. There are too many Susan Millers. So, and that's why I give it my website's name. But, I love the interaction. We're the first people who had that ability. First it was the Gutenberg Bible we could read. Then there was radio we could hear. Then there was TV we could read, see, and hear. But then the Internet closed the box. We could respond. And that, experts tell me, was a huge leap for civilization. And we're lucky to be living through it. It's fun and informative. I know there are bad sides to the Internet. It's just like life. It's a perfect reflection of life.
Exactly.
But there are good sides, too. And so we have to look at that.
Susan, we've got lots to talk with you about. We'll take some more calls next hour. You'll do readings for us with people.
That's the part I enjoy so much.
Super. So we'll do that next hour. Well, give us a quick overview. I'm going to have you go through the astrological signs in a moment, all of them. But give us
year because we have change. This year, Mars was stuck in Gemini, which is great if you're Gemini, but the rest of the signs had to kind of stand back and have, Gemini lead the parade. Next year, we have much more variety. Mars will be moving fast instead of like a little turtle. Saturn is changing signs, and it means that the problems you've been dealing with for 3 years are about to show progress. You've been working at it. You've been trying to fix it. And those problems are starting to melt. And when March 7th comes around and Saturn changes signs, this is monumental because Saturn hasn't been in Pisces in 29 years. And Pluto is going to give us a little preview from March 24th to June 11th to show us what's coming in 2024 when he enters Aquarius permanently for 20 years. And this was where Pluto was during the American Revolution and the French Revolution. This is why we're squabbling so much with each other, because Pluto is kind of feisty, and he's put us in a kind of mood to question everything. But it's necessary to have a public forum. It's okay. We'll come back together again. We will. It'll just take a little time. It will.
So overall, a pretty good year, huh?
Oh, I'm excited about it. It's going to be
That's
good.
great.
And I think we might be able to put the pandemic in the rearview mirror.
For a change.
There's a little bit of a spike right now going on, because of Christmas and everything, that, people were traveling a lot. But hopefully by spring, we'll really have a handle on it. I hope so. I want to go back to normal life.
Why do the zodiac signs start with Aries when Aries starts in March?
Yes, well, because Aries is the bud. It's when those little leaves come out and the little crocus poke through the ground. It is the renewal of life. And astrology follows the circle of life. Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac, represents winter and the wise old man with the cane. He has lived through all the seasons, and he has developed so much wisdom. Pisces is an old soul, and Aries is the newborn baby. So we start with Aries, and we go through the zodiac. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go through them. Let's start with Aries. Give us a quick
Aries,
overview.
They started having a wonderful year last year in 2022 because Jupiter, the giver of gifts and luck, entered Aries for the first time in 12 years.
Everybody who's in Aries listening to you right now is probably cheering.
You know what? And actually, the first 4.5 months of this year until May 16th, when Jupiter, the giver of gifts and luck, great happiness planet, the Santa Claus planet, leaves Aries. But it's a very rare time. So if you're Aries, you have to know what you want because the universe is listening, and it wants to give you what you want. So, but if you don't know what you want, that's a bit of a problem. So, spend a little time thinking about it. But it last year must have been happy for them, especially from May 10th to October 30th. Think if anything exciting happened during that time. But Jupiter was a little slow from July 28th on. This year, he's moving really fast, and a fast-moving planet is a potent planet. So this is it. Go for the gold.
Taurus.
Now, Taurus gets what the Aries had. And they have a full year, just like Aries does. Jupiter's pretty equal to everyone. So he's going in May 16th, and he stays until May 24th of the following year. And I was talking to a Taurus, and she said, yeah, but I'm losing my job. I work in television. They canceled the show. This is terrible. I said, no, actually, they're doing you a favor. When is the show ending? It's ending the end of April, just when Jupiter's about to go into her sign, and she's early in the sign. The earlier you are, she's born at the end of April, you feel it first. If you're born, maybe middle of May, you have to wait a little bit for it to be over your head, but it's coming, and they're really going into a glorious time. And by the way, Aries will start making good money after Jupiter leaves. So, everything you're putting in place now comes up in the garden in the next gestation. So, Taurus, your actions have legs. You keep planting those seeds, have a plan, and you're going to be doing well. Now, Gemini, you're going to expand your circle of friends.
Yeah, and I'm a Gemini, by the way.
Oh, yes. And you're such a Gemini, George, because you have a radio and a podcast and all kinds of communication media. And that's what you excel in. And last year was great for your career. This year is too, but less pressure, more help from friends. Last year it was what you knew. This year it's who you know. And get involved with maybe a new platform, social media platform. And then come May, you're going into a very reflective and preparatory stage for your best year of your life, coming in the second half of 24, going into the first half of 25. But the more you prepare, the better the year will be. So that's a time to put something in place, maybe a new business idea, or it could be something personal like getting married or buying a house or writing a book. Whatever's in your heart, whatever you're passionate about, you go for that because you're going to have so much cosmic support.
My dear mother, who's going to be 94 on May 28th, is also a Gemini. And what a great, energetic lady she is.
My mom was Gemini, too. And they always read to their children. They take them places. They talk to them.
Yeah.
I had a great vocabulary because my mother used such complicated words all the time.
That's great.
And
Susan, stay with us for a sec. We're going to hit a break here. We're going to come back and chat more. We're going to talk about your app. We're going to go through the rest of the zodiac signs, and then we'll get into some more questions with you. Our special guest, Susan Miller, website linked up at coasttocoastam.com, and you can find her app on the website as well. Next hour, we'll take your calls with Susan Miller, the astrologer. What we will need, I'll give her your name and your location. We'll need your birth date that you'll give to Tom, month and day. That's all she needs. And then she'll take it away and tell you a little bit about yourself and see how you like it. And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with astrologer Susan Miller. Susan, before we get into the rest of the astrological signs of zodiac, let me ask you the one about the one we're going to talk about next, and that is Cancer. With this thing being named after a horrible disease.
No.
What came first, the zodiac sign or the naming of the disease? The
zodiac sign came first. It's just a coincidence.
Oh, God.
It's Cancer, the little crab, but we love that little crab.
All right. Well, tell us about the little crab.
Well, if you're a Cancer listening, I want you to just focus on your career. You are batting 1,000. You're hitting a home run every week at your job. Your boss adores you. I don't know if you've seen the full effect yet, but by April you will. And you've got to keep at it. And you say, well, what about love? All right, that comes after May 16th. Actually, the rest of the year is going to be super social. But I don't want you to get distracted in the first 4.5 months. So keep to your program, work really hard, tell your boss you want to get ahead, look at other offers, and your friends are going to help you so much this year, and they're going to ask you about your goals. So have them ready in your pocket.
Next up, Leos.
Oh, love the Leos. They're just wonderful. Foreign people, foreign markets are important for them in the beginning of the year, also publishing, broadcasting, and legal matters. But in May, something happens where 5 out of 10 heavenly bodies, half the solar system, and that includes the sun and moon, because we have 8 planets if you include Pluto, which astrologers do. So much is happening in May in your career. You are getting publicity, big breakthrough, big promotion or job offer. It's fantastic. And Leo loves to lead. They like to be at the helm, and they're going to get their wish. It's really, they're very talented. Many of them are in the creative arts, but some of them make fabulous managers or teachers. So whatever you have in your heart, what you want to do this year, the universe is going to give you the podium. So go for the gold.
Next up, Virgos.
Virgo is the sign that is really thinking about getting married. They've had a very good career course this year. It's continuing all the way through March. They're doing fabulously well in their career. And this is a modest sign. They hardly ever beat their chest and tell people what they're accomplishing. Virgo, I would like you to do that. Virgo is so careful about spending money. In the past few years, they've had unexpected expenses, and they're bewildered by it. Well, the universe is going to make a correction. This first half of the year is so good for your money. Okay, commission, bonus, royalties. It's performance-based money. Or it could be you win a prize. Maybe you go on Jeopardy. all the reading they do will start to hang off.
Or you get a Mega Millions ticket or something, huh?
Yeah, it could be that. So, Virgo, you're going to be rewarded, and it'll feel good when you are. And then you're going to be able to travel in the second half of the year because you'll have the money that you earned in the first half. So think about where you'd like to go that you never thought you would see, like Istanbul or, I don't know, Kyoto, the ancient city of Japan. There's so many wonderful places. So think about that.
Libra.
Oh, Libra. You have Jupiter going in Aries, so you are the sign most likely to get married in the first half of the year, but then Scorpio gets that title in the second half. But Libra is a sign of marriage, and you like to be married, and you're a good partner. So, and if you're already married, your partner's going to do well. And because of that, you'll have more choices in life. More money will be coming in. There's a happy, optimistic feeling. Now, if you say, I don't want to get married, oh, no, well, that's okay. You could use this for business partnership or publicist or an agent or a wedding planner, someone who works with you one-on-one. Very lucky for you. And then after that, you're going to start making money in the second half of the year with all the seeds you plant in the first half of the year. So that's really exciting.
Then
now,
we have Scorpios.
Scorpio is going under a lot of changes. The eclipses have been in their sign in Taurus. And this is a sign that doesn't like change. They like to know the plan and stick to it. They don't like surprises. But sometimes it's good for us to get shaken up out of our ruts. And Scorpio, you had great love aspects last year, and or maybe you had a baby. There's a different kind of love for a little child. But love in your private life was great. Now you're going into a period where you're going to have very interesting work assignments. And you'll be really excited about them, and you're going to want to go to the office and learn more every day. I mean, you really get some plum assignments. Also, your health is going to improve, and that always feels good.
Sagittarius.
Sagittarius. I love Sag. Sag, if you have to move, I want you to move in the first 2 months, because when Saturn goes into your house of home, it may take you longer to find the right house, or, well, we all know interest rates have been going up to try to cool down the economy. So you might have to wait, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't keep saving money for your dream home. It'll give you a little bit more time. Eventually, you'll be able to afford the house. You know, I was thinking about this. Some people have to sell property. You know, maybe someone in their family died and they're in charge of the estate and they really have to sell it. But they know that interest rates are high, so they may lower the price so that you could afford it. So don't think you're going to be locked out. But Sagittarius, you have the best love aspects of the whole zodiac in the first half of the year. I mean, if you're single, you'll be going out a lot. And if you're married, you'll fall in love with your partner all over again, and you really should take a trip together. And, of course, Sagittarius is happiest when they're on the road. So it's really a nice outlook, really good. And this is an athletic sign. They may pick up a new sport at the second half of the year that they really enjoy.
3 more signs left. Capricorn.
Capricorn, you have the best real estate aspects. You're luckier than a little leprechaun. Do not think you can't afford an apartment. Or let's say you love where you live, but you really need to change your kitchen or do something with those bathrooms. Or maybe you wanted to refresh your decor by getting some new furniture. You'll probably get it on a bargain if you start looking, and talk to friends about contractors, because some are good and some are not so good. So you don't want to have, but you're going to have luck with it. So ask for references. And work on that kitchen if you want to redesign it. This is the year to reward yourself with that. Feather your nest, because love comes in as a huge trend from May 23 to May 24. So this is big. And my number one question, George, is can I have a baby? And, there's an epidemic of people having, couples having problems conceiving. Capricorn will be the exception to that rule. And if you've had trouble, go to a fertility doctor. They know a lot more now.
Aquarius.
So, Aquarius is getting rid of Saturn. They've had Saturn, the taskmaster drill sergeant, in their sign since December 2020. And on March 7th, he's leaving. This is like a big weight being taken off their shoulders. They are going to be in the middle of all things that are new and happening, not only in 23, but moving forward into future years. Many of them are moving and changing their jobs. They may be moving to get closer to a place where they can get a really good job, or maybe they just want to cut down on commuting, which everybody wants to cut down on. We realize that was a waste of time, and your boss might let you work at home. And you have Jupiter in Taurus, so that's going to help you find the dream home. But it won't happen until the second half of the year, possibly in May. It could happen in May or November. So you have a pretty exciting forecast, yeah. And then there's Pisces. Pisces, last sign of the zodiac, you're going to take on some new responsibility because Saturn's coming to you. But you had this in 1993, 94, and 95. So think back. Did something happen then? Did you accomplish something then? Well, now Saturn's coming back to help you make more accomplishments. Because the thing about Saturn is the things we are happiest about in life and proudest to say we did always happen with a Saturn transit. You know, when I had Saturn on my sun, I started Astrology Zone. And here, 27 years later, I still have my website. So what you start, you get to keep as long as you work with Saturn. Think of him as a high-priced tutor. Now, also, Pisces doesn't care about money that much. They're not motivated by money. But the universe feels that Pisces deserves more money. And boy, is the money coming, especially in April. March and April, excellent financial time to be negotiating something or getting new clients or getting a new job or finding a side job to bring in more. But it's generous money. There's also something about writing in the future, writing or speaking. They may be writing a book, a screenplay, I don't know, or asked to speak to groups. Whatever it is, communication is becoming much more important. So if you want to go back to school, maybe take a creative writing class or a public speaking class, whatever it is, go back to the classroom, take a course. It'll give you even more confidence. So see, everybody has something to look forward to.
Now, when they take calls with you, do you want them to ask you a question, or are you just going to run with it?
Yes, a specific question.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
don't
say like, tell me about my life. That would take too long.
All right.
So we want to cover a lot of people.
Your app, tell us about that again.
Astrology Zone horoscopes. If you just put into the Apple App Store or Google Play, Susan Miller, up comes both my apps. I have
okay.
one on moonlight phases, too, that tells you when to act, when to hold back. I wasn't sure if people would understand what I was talking about. It's a runaway success. I put it on the market last year, and people love it. So both apps are really good. The first one, the premium part, is $4.99 a month, like 16 cents a day, or a little more than $1 a week. And the other one is a flat fee of $8, and it goes to 2050. Both of them have GPS built in, so when you travel, so does the app, and it gives you accurate information because all of astrology is very mathematical.
Can you use it for your family, too?
Oh, sure. That's a great point. Yeah, you can read your mom's sign or your boyfriend's sign or your girlfriend's sign. Yeah, and you could send it to them. Yeah, I love it when people share or they call up their mom and read it over the phone to her to brighten her day. You know, no matter how dark things get, there's always something working for you in the chart. And my job is to show you what that is, because it can help you solve problems. If you have a little luck in one area of your life, it can transfer over and could spread. So, you know, I love my job.
Well, you do a great job with it.
Thank you. Wow, thank you.
And I hear your website gets about 13 million hits a month?
No, unique readers. Because you can get like one person clicking several times, but these are real people, 13 million a year, yes. Well, I'm very grateful. I love my readers, and I get to meet them. During the pandemic, I couldn't do any appearances, but now I'm starting to do it again. And it's really fun to get to meet people in real life. It's different than meeting them on Zoom. Don't you agree?
Yep, and let me ask you this, too. Like with Aries, and Aries is from March 21st to April 19.
Yes.
Do you just need to know if they're an Aries, or do you need that specific birthday?
I like to have the specific birthday because the question, I'm doing math in my head when they're asking, and if they're born late in the sign, that's going to push my prediction a little bit later. Yeah, so, tell me the exact date, but not the year. That's okay. Women don't like to give the year anyway. We should never ask a lady what year she's born, right?
Most people, like 60's the new 40 these days.
It certainly is. It is. Think of our grandmothers and how young we look compared to when we were little and we would go upstairs and see our grandma.
Then I got to hold you to about 2 minutes per person if you would just mentally think about that.
I know. Your producer told me. So
Tommy's on it. He's on it.
People listening know that I'm not trying to cut you short. We're just trying to cover many people, and many of your questions will be answered in my monthly forecast. And if I didn't cover it, I'm going to surely put it in next month because that's why I love doing these type questions, where I can hear what you're thinking.
Our guest is astrologer Susan Miller. Her website, first of all, is astrologyzone.com. Her app, you can just type in her name, Susan Miller, in the App Store, and the 2 different apps will pop up for you. And if you're an Apple or you're an Android person, take care of that. Now, when we take calls, Tommy needs your birth month and day, and then you will ask Susan a specific question, all right? Just don't say something general. Be very specific on what you want to ask her, and she'll take it away. So we'll be back with much more in just a moment on Coast to Coast. With our special guest, astrologer Susan Miller, this hour, we'll take your calls. We'll need your birth month and day, and then you ask her a specific question, and we'll go from there. And welcome back. George Norrie with you, along with astrologer Susan Miller. Your calls this hour as well. Susan, why do celestial events determine the outcome of people's events?
Well, we don't know. We just don't know. We know empirically. We know by research. And, astrology started 2,400 years ago in Mesopotamia, and it's lasted all this time. People who read by forecast know I'm very detailed. I even mention certain birthdays in every column that you'll feel certain events. We know by the degrees of the planets, and NASA gives us tables. They know where Venus, Mars, Mercury, and so forth are located, and we use those tables. Other companies print them, too. It just depends on what font you like best or find easy to read. But, when 2 planets start talking together, things start happening just like people. If you sit in your house, not much is going to happen. But if you go outside and you start talking to someone, things start happening. Same with planets.
What do people generally want to know when they talk to you?
Well, it used to be love, but now it's money and career, as the economy has tightened a little bit.
Did they ask much about health?
Yes, and that's a legitimate question.
Oh, sure.
And also conception. A lot of couples want a baby. And what it is, women are waiting longer. And it's better to have your babies in your 20s or freeze your eggs so that you have more time. But, that's a big question, too. I get a lot of letters,
Late President's wife, Nancy Reagan, from Ronald Reagan, was very heavy into astrology and would advise him, too. Well, she got him into it.
Well, he was an actor, and actors, all creative people, are very interested in how they can shape their life. They approach life creatively. And he never said he wasn't into it, but he would always say, oh, that's Nancy's interest, and she really believed in it and consulted some very good astrologers. Jean Dixon was one of them.
Let's take some calls. Next one up is going to be a Pisces. Feb 19 is the birthday. We're going to Ethna in New Jersey. Welcome to the show. Hello, Ethna.
Hi, George. Hi, Susan. It's very hard to call in when you're on the East Coast and you might be working.
It's not easy.
I'm on the East Coast. I am. I'm in New York.
Well, I just want to tell you that I did see you in the bookstore in 2004. And I went in and bought your book. And then I went to your workshop in Rye, New York, and you had 12 of us there. The next year, we went to Barnes & Noble in Union Square in Manhattan, and it was packed.
Right, I remember that day.
Yes, and the following year, you had your mom there, and she was so delightful. She was so thrilled.
My little mom, who I miss so much. Yes, she died in
cute.
2012.
Oh, sorry to hear
Well, what is your question? You're in a good place right now, Pisces. And you know,
I
the
hope
February
so.
Pisces
It hasn't been easy.
super creative. You know, even more than the March Pisces. Those born the 19th to the 28th or 29th, if it's leap year, amazingly creative. So what's your question?
Well, I want to know what I should be focusing on this year because I want to change my job, but I may have to move, and I also have some sibling issues, and I'm thinking, what should I focus on?
Well, I think the job is very important because that's where the money comes in, and that gives you choices. And if you have to move, you're going to need money. Boy, moving is so expensive. Now, you've been working on this moving situation in your head since August 20th. It started to get even more intense and more important. You will make a final decision by time Mars leaves Gemini on March 25th. That's the same time that your relationship with your sister or brother will get a little better. This person's a little cranky lately.
More than cranky.
But it will smooth out. But focus on the job right now because you're in high demand and you could really make some good money. This is a year of tremendous reward for Pisces, financial reward.
Oh, thank you very much, Susan. And it was nice talking to you, George.
Okay, Ethna, you too. You take care of yourself.
Oh, that was exciting. Thank you.
Oh, they're all this way. They're all great callers for you.
Oh, yes.
Does astrology echo numerology, which goes by numbers, of course?
Well, not quite. And astrologers find numerology a little too basic. No, there is a correlation, but not a strong one. Yeah, no. I do believe that everybody should add up their birthday, the month, day, year. And like if it's 1975, you just add up all those numbers and reduce it to a single digit, and then look up what that means. You can Google it, and you'll find out more about yourself. It's fun, actually.
One of my favorite questions from Christmas Carol when Scrooge was talking to one of the spirits, saying, "Are these things that will be or could be?" And so when you give advice, are they will be or could be?
Nothing is predetermined. We are partners with the universe. The universe will help you, but you have to make the initiative or nothing will happen. You really have to show what your intent is, and you have to work toward it. I can give a very interesting example. Let's say a person's under fabulous career aspects, but person number one is terrible, hands in work with typos, comes in late, talks back to his boss, but he doesn't lose his job because he's under great aspects. But his boss keeps saying to himself, I got to get rid of this kid. I mean, he's driving me crazy, but I don't have time to interview someone new. But the minute that bad person loses his special edge from the planets, he's out the door with a pink slip. Whereas the other employee who's been working hard, stays late, does what his boss needs, is a team member, everybody's rowing in the same direction and really helping, that person gets a promotion. So it does depend on what you do, and we have to take responsibility for our actions. Many people ask me, well, how can you be a devout Catholic and be an astrologer. Well, the cornerstone of every religion, and it doesn't matter what your religion is that you must take responsibility for your actions. You can't blame someone else, and you certainly can't blame a planet. These are influences, but they're not predestinations. But I can tell you when to act, when to hold back, almost like a weather map.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, you're going to have some storms in the middle of the country, so you have to fly up higher, closer to Canada and around, or let's say you have bad aspects to look for a new apartment. I'll say, well, it's going to take longer, but don't give up. It's just going to take longer because many of the spaces you look at are going to be too expensive, and you're not going to like them. They're going to be small and not worth the money. But you just got to keep looking and asking people for help. And I can tell you what month you'll hit it, So, we can use our time better, in summary, yeah.
Next up, Scorpio, November 14. We're going to Bob in Sacramento. Hey, Bob, welcome to the show.
Hi, Bob.
Hey, how's it going, you guys?
Great.
Well, you're born November 14th. You've been under a lot of stress near your birthday. Did something happen around that time?
Not necessarily. It's just kind of been ongoing stress.
Yeah, because all the eclipses has been in your sign, which means a lot of change, more change than you ever thought was going to come up. But Scorpio's practical, and they make a plan and they stick to it. I'm sorry I'm talking so much. Why don't you tell me what your question was?
Go ahead, Bob.
Oh, no, I like letting you roll with it. I was just trying to see if this is going to, if this is going to be my champion year. Things are going to turn around. What's happening?
Are you self-employed?
Actually, in a way, yeah.
Yeah, because Scorpios are very good with money. They're very shrewd. They're excellent negotiators, and if they take a class in investing, they're like the star pupil. Yes. Many people are asking me if we're going to have a recession. I think we might, but it will be a mild one. It will happen around May 17th. That's when we'll start hearing things. But it will only last until June of the following year. It will be mild. People should not worry. Some industries will be easier to deal with than others. And I know the tech industry has been hit hard lately, but they're the ones who are going to be best positioned for moving forward, oddly enough. So, but, and farming and anything with the land and growing things will be doing very well, the food industry, and new ways of growing and protecting our health from pesticides and so forth. What field are you in?
I'm in construction and art.
Oh, construction's fabulous, but it's in the second half of the year. That's when, you're going to be in such demand. Don't worry. Boy, August is really good for you, too. Don't take a vacation in August. You got to be around. Your phone's going to be ringing.
All right. Good luck, Bob. Hope everything works out for you.
Go in July. Around the 4th of July, that'll be fun to go away, but be back by August.
Next up, a Sagittarian. December 14, we're going to Andrew in South Carolina, east of the Rockies. Hello,
Hi.
Andrew.
Andrew,
hi, George. Hi, Susan. How are you guys?
I'm so happy. You're born on my website's birthday, December 14th. And did you know Nostradamus was born on that day? I didn't know that, but I was watching the History
I did know that.
Yeah.
I feel very honored to share his birthday.
Yeah, you have a great destiny here. What's your question?
Well, I've been in a long-term relationship, and I'm not ashamed to say I just turned 40 a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
And I want to know if this is going to be the year. Are we going to tie the knot?
Well, it's funny. I think she's ready, but you've been the one that's been wanting to go slow, because Sagittarius is the sign that takes the longest to make sure it's the right decision. But because Mars has been in your partnership house
Okay.
Oh, for so long, since the second half of August, you've been really focused on this wonderful person. What sign is she?
She is a Taurus.
Oh, she's Taurus.
Bullheaded.
Well, when she makes up her mind, wild horses couldn't change it. So, but she probably is a great cook, and good for you. Very stabilizing. She's your rock.
She is.
Yeah, I think you will make up your mind, and I think it could happen around Valentine's Day, oddly enough, because this year we have a fabulous Valentine's Day. We don't always have that, but this year a good one's coming. So you might want to surprise her and pop the question. Why wait? You'll go into your next phase and really enjoy each other. It'll be exciting.
That sounds good. Thank you so much, Susan. I really appreciate it.
Good luck, Andrew. And
Thank you.
it's good advice you give, Suze, to people.
Oh, well, thanks. Hey, wow. Well, I love the questions. They're good.
Next up, it's August 21. We're going west of the Rockies to Lori in the state of Washington. Hello, Lori. Welcome to the show.
Wow, yes. You're right on the cusp. August 21st. You're part Leo, part Virgo.
Yeah, that's about where it falls. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Oh, sure. What's your question?
I'm concerned about love. I haven't been having any luck finding a partner that would be perfect for me. And right now, my biggest concern is finding someone that hasn't taken the COVID vaccine. I'm not vaccinated, and I don't plan to be, but I don't want to be with somebody that's going to end up with health issues later on.
So you want a partner who has a vaccine?
Has not.
Who has not been vaccinated.
Oh, all right. Well,
basically considered pureblood.
Well, I don't know. Well, when we have qualifiers, it narrows the field, obviously. I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But there might be groups or clubs that you could go to and meet people who are like-minded, or maybe there's a charity or a humanitarian organization, and that you'd be working shoulder to shoulder with people who agree with you. And that's such a good start, when you have things in common. I used to think when I was younger that, I could marry anybody and he could be opposite me, very different. But as I've gotten older, I think similarity really solidifies a relationship. And the good thing about you is you know what you want. And that's so good. I mean, most people don't. So, and Virgo, the Virgo part of you, I know you're technically still a Leo, but that Virgo part of you is very open and caring and very service-minded. What kind of work do you do?
I do dog grooming.
I'm sorry, what is that?
Dog grooming.
I'm a dog groomer.
Oh, wow. In grooming. Oh, wow. The little pets and stuff? Yeah. Oh, did you know that Virgo rules small domestic animals? Sagittarius rules the big, like horses and elephants and giraffes. But Virgo rules the little pets that we love so much. You're in the perfect job for you. That tells me that the Virgo is dominant in your chart because you're right on the borderline. So you have to find a group that's similar. George, is there something on Facebook where people gather, maybe a kind of a Facebook group?
I was going to tell her to try out paranormaldate.com, our other website.
That's fabulous.
Yes, that's
You have to go where other people are attracted.
Where they get
similar.
you. Where they get you.
Yes, where they don't challenge you, they agree with you, and that just is half the battle. Yeah, I think you may have some real luck this year. And also, think about who you met last year. If there's someone who was kind of borderline, give that person a chance, because you were under fabulous marriage aspects last year in 2022.
Susan, mention your website and what people can do and how they can sign up for some things. Go ahead.
It's all free because I want to help people. It's astrologyzone.com. We read every letter that comes in. We do. my secretary recently left, so I was looking for a new one. I'm still looking for a new helper, but I have some temporary people that are pitching in to help me because they're, you have to keep looking at the mail. But and I also I just wrote a book called The Next 200 Years, which is pretty exciting. That's a whole show on itself.
The next 200 years?
Yes. And I'm finishing up my manuscript on 2023, and every sign will be covered. I just need another week to add a few more pieces of information in some of the early signs, Aries through Virgo. The other ones are longer on the second half, so I want everybody to have equal. And I'll do it electronically or also offer a PDF so that no one has to buy a Kindle or something like that.
All right, Susan, we're going to take a quick break and come back and take final calls with you in just a moment on Coast to Coast AM. Next hour, David Sereda joins us to talk about the incredible life of Nikola Tesla, and then we'll also be talking about some strange anomalies with the Washington Monument. Full information, by the way, at coasttocoastam.com in the highlight reel. Take a look at some of the graphics that David has sent us. We're going to come back in a moment with Susan Miller and take final astrological calls with her and you in just a moment on Coast to Coast as well. And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you, our final segment with Susan Miller as we talk about astrology and how it works. Are you somewhat psychic too, Susan?
No, I say I'm not. Although recently I had a dream that I had identity theft. I was listening to your commercial.
Oh, really?
On LifeLock, and I was sitting in the bank with the branch manager in my dream, and I was signing papers. Well, the next day it was busy. The phones were ringing. I was on deadline. But in the evening, I said, maybe I should look at my bank's app and see if everything's okay. And there was a $14,711 check going through, said pending, that I never wrote. I would have remembered that. So I called Chase. I went across the street, talked to the manager. He said, this is definitely fraud. This is grand larceny. And you caught it right at the right time. We're stopping this check. So I don't know. I guess sometimes God gives us these little things to protect us.
Yep, absolutely. Let's go back to the phones. Next up, May 13, and we're going to Madonna in New York. Are you the Madonna or just Madonna?
I'm named after the Blessed Mother, not the other one.
Okay, great.
Happy to meet you, Madonna. Lovely name.
Oh, nice to meet you. You have an aura that is radiant.
Oh,
There's
thank you.
no other way to say it. I'm so happy you're all right from what you've been through in your childhood. You're supposed to be here. You know that.
It opened my heart. And, being in the hospital so much, I got to see other people in my room. And, you grow up pretty quickly, but it also opened my heart. Yeah, it was.
She's a Taurus. What's your question, Madonna?
Okay, I bought a cottage about a couple of months ago, and I'm selling the home I'm in now. It's too big. Will I be selling it this month? Because I have two gentlemen interested. It's next to Fort Drum. They rent it out to soldiers, but I'm nervous, and I'm confident, but will it be fast?
So you bought a cottage and you want to sell it now, and you've only had it for a few months.
I want to sell the house I'm in now.
She wants to sell the house to move into the cottage.
Oh, you want to move into it and sell your present house.
Right.
You're a little early. I wish, you see, first of all, Mars is retrograde until January 12th, and Mercury is retrograde until the 18th. So I wouldn't even let you sign anything before that, but that's pretty soon.
Okay.
But your best prices are coming right around your birthday. And we're kind of early right now. If it falls through, I wouldn't worry about it. It's the universe's way to protect you. But, of course, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, especially in a very difficult economy that we're in for mortgage rates. So are you sure these people are approved for a mortgage or can pay cash?
If they're going to pay cash, and I have a lawyer already, and they're waiting on me to have them come look at the house. So,
all right. Well, then have them come after the 18th, which is like next week, isn't it? Today's the 11th.
Yeah, well, Martin Luther King Day's Monday, so there's going to be nothing open.
So there you go. So you do it the second half. The 24th of January is such a good day. I wrote about it a lot in Astrology Zone because the Sun and Jupiter are working together. But I'll tell you, if it doesn't work out, you have even better offers coming. But if they do give you an offer, take it because
I want to.
Then you don't have to worry, and you can work on your next project, which Taurus always has the next project.
Thank you very much.
I know. I love the little Tauruses. They're so much fun.
All right. Good luck, Madonna.
Good luck. And you're very talented with real estate, so use your intuition, too.
Next up, August 19th. August 19th, we're going to Tammy in North Carolina. Hello, Tammy.
Hi, Tammy. A Leo. Yes.
Hi, yeah. Thank you, George. And hi, Susan.
Thank you.
Happy 20th, George.
Thank you. That's 20 years of doing the show, Susan, not my birthday.
Oh, no, I know. That's fantastic. That's a great milestone.
On to 21. Go ahead, Tammy. What's your question?
Yes, what is it?
I can just, I guess, pick something about money, like if it will be good or bad for me.
You had some luck in 22, didn't you? You made some wise investments in 22. And are you looking for a job or are you looking for investments? What are you looking for?
Well, I'm a Lyme person, and so I've had health issues for a while. So I'm kind of looking for something I can do part-time from home or something like that.
Well, your timing is wonderful.
I like art and
employers have figured out that we work harder when we work at home. They were all worried that we'd slough off, and it's just the opposite. I've always worked at home.
People always work hard.
You should look for your job in May, right around your birthday. If you remember, or maybe you didn't tune in early enough, in May, something's going on in your chart that is so spectacular. You haven't seen anything like this since May 2000, which is 23 years ago. I don't know if you can even remember what happened that year, but boy, oh boy, do you have spectacular aspects for finding not only a nice job, but something that will elevate your status and make you proud to say you're doing this work. And no, you're just a little early. That's all. But start looking anyway, write your resume, and you're going to be in demand. So be confident, and you go out there and slay that dragon because it's coming. And
All right.
It's this year.
Good luck, Tammy.
Very low.
Hope it all works out for you. We're taking final calls with Susan Miller, the astrologer. We're going to Mark in Minneapolis, April 13th. That would make him an Aries, right?
Aries, yeah, I love the Aries.
Hey, Mark, welcome.
Hi, what's happening in your life, Mark?
Yeah, George, Susan, it's a health issue. I'm a type 2 diabetic.
Oh.
And the medications have been horrible. I even suffered a stroke from some of them.
Oh my goodness, so you're allergic to the medicine.
Yeah, things are not going well. So I just thought I'd ask you if you see any miracle, medical advancements.
It's funny you should use the word miracle. Jupiter in Aries, where it is right now, Jupiter has been called the planet of miracles. Have you gotten a second opinion? Because sometimes doctors make assumptions and they prescribe the wrong drug. Sometimes they aren't thinking and they give everybody the same one. Have you tried a different doctor?
Oh yeah, I've tried a whole
bunch of them.
Of drugs, yeah.
You're under really good aspects right now until the middle of May. I'd love you to, try something new. What do they say to you? Isn't there a medicine that
Are you on metformin, Mark? Have you taken that?
Yeah, that's one of the tough ones.
They're not good for you, huh?
Yeah, and then you take these other where you do the self-injection. It's supposed to go for a week.
Yeah,
those are very tough, and that's one of that was the time when I had a stroke as a result of it. So,
oh, geez.
I just thought I would ask.
It sounds like you have a very clean system, because people who react very sensitively to drugs usually do have a clean system, and you just have this one problem. I'm almost wondering if it's an overdose. I would have to look at your whole chart, but I definitely think you should try one more doctor. Just one more, because you're under such good aspects, and it gets better and better. April and May are your best months. You're born, did you say on the 13th?
April 13th.
Yeah, and my daughter's the 19th, so I know your chart really well. But it gets better as time goes on, better than January and February. So just start looking around, getting names from friends, and doing some research on the Internet. I think you could get help. I'm certainly going to light a candle for you. I definitely want you to get what you need. I know how frustrating it is when doctors don't quite understand us, because that's what my beginning of my life was. Now I'm good. But
My biggest pet peeve, Susan, with these pharmaceutical companies is after the commercial, before it ends, or right at the end, they give you every disclaimer in the world.
It's unbelievable. They say, well, it could result in death. I mean, really?
You could have a stroke. Your eyes could fall off.
I mean, it's ridiculous. That's why I think most people are very careful about what they take. I certainly am. I always say, what are the side effects? And they don't want to tell you, but you have to make them say, either you're going to tell me or I'm going to look it up, so you might as well tell me, So.
Next up, we're going to a Taurus, May 15. Kathy's with us in Las Vegas.
My friend who's a diabetic.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi there, George.
Hello, Kathy. Hello. When's your birthday?
May 15.
Oh, we have another Taurus. All the little Tauruses are coming out. Oh, I love them. And what do you do for a living?
I'm a massage therapist.
Of course. You know why I asked? Taurus is known to be the most sensitive and sensuous of all signs. They have heightened smell, touch, taste. They go to a movie, and all of us are listening to the plot. This has happened to me, but my Taurus friend, we're walking out. He says, wasn't the music beautiful? I'm like, music? What music? Didn't you hear the background music? He was Taurus, They hear everything. Or you're having dinner with them, they touch your sweater. What is this made out of? This is beautiful. So of course you're a massage therapist. That's a perfect job for you.
Absolutely. The senses are very hot.
What's your question, Kath?
I am wondering if I will find a romantic life partner soon.
Well, have you just broken up with somebody last year with the eclipses in May 16th, or around October 25th, on November 10th? These were all difficult for relationships, and you may have ended one or going into another, or you haven't been going out at all because you're just too busy. Which is it?
Not too busy, but I finally gave up.
You gave up.
Yes.
I know. Love is complicated. It's not easy.
I need a safe place to land my heart.
Well,
Everything
I think
else in my life is great.
Love can blossom at the most unexpected times. The New York Times says that people do the best when they're on vacation because they're relaxed and not thinking about problems of everyday life. But, of course, it has to be like a little vacation nearby. Like in New York City, people go to the Jersey Shore, Poconos, Hamptons, someplace close. Is there a resort near you?
Well, I'm in Vegas, so.
Oh, Las Vegas. Wow. Wow. Do you go to Lake Tahoe?
I haven't ever been there.
Well, there's always a first time. Or Ojai or something, because you're kind of close to these beautiful spots. Go someplace new, bring a girlfriend, and you're more relaxed when you're away. We're not thinking about the taxes we owe or the...
We need good weather, Susan, too, don't we?
Yeah, we have to go somewhere with it. Well, right now, it's pouring rain in California, but I don't think it'll keep up
I'm
forever.
headed out there next week. I'm on my way. Let's go to one more quick
there's
call.
Always a chance for... Actually, there's one thing I want to tell the Tauruses, all of them. They're all checking in. The ancients said that when you have Jupiter in your sign, which happens every 12 years, you have the very best chance for love of any other time. So you're coming up on it beginning in May, going to the following May in 24. Yes, the answer is yes. I just remembered what the ancients wrote, and Pluto agreed with them. So Plato, not Pluto, Plato. So be optimistic, dress up, and go out.
All right, here's a quick one. October 8th, so we got a Libra here. We're going to Michael in Houston, Texas. Hey, Michael.
Oh, hi, Michael. Yeah, I'm going to be speaking
Happy
in Houston,
20.
Texas.
Thanks, Mike.
Yes, hello, guest as well. I just had a question. I'm really battling to get my bachelor's degree this year, and I was just wondering, once I complete it, can you tell me what line of work you see me going into possibly?
Well, what did you major in? Business?
Healthcare management.
Oh, well, you know what?
That'll be huge.
I just heard on the news that healthcare management was skyrocketing and that this was one of the very best industries to go into.
Especially in Houston, Texas.
Oh, yeah.
It's a huge medical area.
I love Houston because they opened their heart during Katrina, and all those people needed a place to stay. The other states weren't too interested in, taking refugees from Louisiana, but
less than a minute to go,
Suze.
Suze.
Your city did in droves. And, our population is aging. There's going to be a steady supply of patients. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. You've had Mars in your house of higher education since August, and it's leaving the end of March. So if you feel that you've been under a lot of pressure, you have. But you stepped up. You've been meeting Mars, full on, and you haven't dropped the ball. Of course you're going to do well. I actually think that people will be vying for you. There could be a little auction going on for your services.
Good for you, Michael. Get that degree.
Yeah.
Susan, we are out of time, but of course we'll have you back again, okay?
Oh, I would love that. Thank you.
All right, you take care of yourself. Susan Miller, website is all linked up at coasttocoastam.com. Up next, David Sereda joins us as we talk about the life of Nikola Tesla and also something strange going on with the Washington Nikola Tesla, the genius that he was born in 1856, was a Serbian-American inventor, electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, and futurist, best known for his contributions to the design of the modern alternating current electricity supply system. He was really something. When he died, his office was raided. His papers were all taken. In a moment, David Sereda joins us. We'll talk about the life of Nikola Tesla and also the Washington Monument, built in the 1800s. Very strange situation there. David will explain that, too, when we come back. And welcome back to Coast to Coast. George Norrie back with David Sereda. David's first aspiration in life was to become an astronaut, as many of us young boys did at the time. In 1968, David and a friend witnessed a UFO along with hundreds of other witnesses. After this experience, he grew up as a UFO enthusiast, never living in doubt of the phenomena that has swept the world since the Roswell incident in 1947. His interest in space, religion, philosophy, astronomy, and science led him on his career in related fields. He has worked deeply in high technology on environmental and humanitarian issues, as well as being a professional photographer for more than 20-plus years. He has studied world religion, science, physics, paranormal psychology as well. David, welcome back to the program, my friend. How have you been?
Good to be here, George. Thank you. It's been a long time since I've talked to you and your audience. So,
and your health is well?
Oh yeah, my health is good.
Excellent.
How was yours?
Everything's good. There's lots of things to talk to you about, but let's start with talking about Nikola Tesla. You were appointed the director of a California-based Tesla Foundation. Tell us about that.
Well, I was working closely with a nuclear fusion scientist who's also from the same country as Tesla. Bogdan Castle-Magowitch was the leader in a novel type of fusion that would produce 1 billion watts in a cubic meter, which is far beyond this new breakthrough they're talking about at Livermore, Berkeley. That fusion reaction won't even power a fridge. I mean, so we had the interest of NASA, the Air Force, Magwitch is a MIT PhD, but again, it's very similar to Tesla. He comes from, the former Yugoslavia, and he gets his PhD at Princeton and MIT in nuclear sciences, and he works with the legendary Louis Alvarez and discovers one of these legendary subatomic particles, the Omega Mason, gets an award from President Kennedy. And actually, when Tesla died, which was January the 7th, 1943, there was a conspiracy of whether it was a murder or not because of the development of the Tesla death ray. And the death ray was actually taken to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is the same place where the Roswell craft was allegedly taken for reverse engineering. So the two men have a very similar background. Actually, Magwitch brings the Tesla, bust, the bronze statue to Niagara Falls. He appoints me director of the Tesla Foundation, under which I spoke in the U.S. Congress on nuclear fusion. I think that was 1993. So I worked with Magwitch closely for many years. I mean, I had access to Glenn Seaborg, who chaired the Atomic Energy Commission under Kennedy, Johnson, and Nixon, and was one of the fathers of the atomic bomb. I mean, I was right in there. In fact, one day at the Berkeley lab, I'm having lunch with Seaborg, and Albert Ghiorso, his assistant, is even more brilliant than almost any American physicist you can imagine. And I'm telling them all about my UFO sighting that you just mentioned in 1968, which that lab would have had a perfect view of. And Seaborg, who, he headed the AEC under Kennedy, Johnson, and Nixon, he looks at me and he takes me very seriously. He was very interested in my sighting, and we talked about it at great length. We even talked about element 115, the Tsar thing. And the interest in Tesla's technology, both that which we all know, alternating current, the battle of the currents between, Tesla and Edison, and what a question came upon my consciousness that has always baffled me since the beginning of the great birth of the technological age, and that is, why did all the inventions? I mean, I'm going to go over everything here. When the Washington Monument is being erected in
the 1800s, right?
It was going up in 1848, and it's completed in 1884. But the frame, which is steel, acts like an antenna. And an antenna, when you're driving down, I remember when I was a kid driving along the countryside in California, you see these giant radio towers, and the height of a radio tower is proportional to the frequency that it's tuned to. So if you draw the height of a radio tower, and you make a square out of its height, so you draw 4 lines, you have a square, that's the wavelength that the monopole antenna will receive or transmit at. So you just take the speed of light in inches divided by the wavelength in inches, and you got its frequency. So I was on this mission to calculate the frequency that the Washington Monument put off. And the reason I wanted to know is all of a sudden, Tesla, when Tesla came to America to work for Edison, he didn't have anything better than a bachelor's degree. He received this, invitation by Mr. Batchelor to work for Edison. Edison was kind of curious about this kid. And Edison, suddenly invents the light bulb, 1879, which is, the frame of the monument is up. They're just putting the marble, pure white stone and working on the capstone in the final days. Bell invents the telephone, 1877. Tesla's AC and Thomas Edison's DC are in this brutal battle, what was known as the Battle of the Currents. And in 1882, they both come into existence, and the monument is nearly complete, right? Tesla invents radio, 1893. The U.S. Supreme Court rules June 21st, 1943. The Tesla, Lodge, and Stone are the fathers of radio. So Lodge invents EMF, 1894. Tesla invents remote control, 1898. Henry Ford invents the automobile, 1896. And the motion picture is Edison and Dickinson, 1888. Farnsworth invents TV, 1922. And what I do is I go on Google Earth and I map the location of the inception of all these inventions and it's like a bubble. Imagine an energy wave coming off the Washington Monument. The moment this monument, which is an antenna, it's an Egyptian obelisk with a 72-degree slope angle pyramidion at the top, and an aluminum, really, really, really precise, fine-tipped capstone on top of that. And all of a sudden, you name it, and I'm going to go through these. Every single major invention that changed the world did not happen in Oregon, did not happen in Australia, did not happen in Austria, did not happen in Switzerland. It all happens within this bubble of about 200 nautical miles. And I mean, even the Wright brothers are within, at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, the first, airplane flight. They're all within this bubble. Radio astronomy, Carl Jansky, Bell Labs in 1930, right inside the bubble.
All at the same time, right?
Yeah, no, it's consecutive. So initially there's a burst, right? There's Tesla and Edison's AC and DC are born as the monument is nearly complete with its white marble. But what I'm saying is the Tesla-Schumann resonance of the Earth is powering. This is the tallest structure in the world at the time, right? I mean, it's even taller than the pyramid, and we're going to go into the Washington Monument's connection to the Great Pyramid and so on. But so why is it that the arrival of this masterpiece, which I believe is transmitting passively this frequency, so I'm on a mission to find the frequency. It's very easy to do, and I find the frequency, and I find it's a high-pitched A note based on the 432, the legendary 432 music scale. The conspiracy theory around 432ism is that all our music was detuned to, the middle A note would be A440, which is what is used today. And there is a conspiracy, and this has been publicized in major, newspapers, this conspiracy theory, because it's a very huge theory that originally the French, had middle A on the piano and the violin tuned at 432, and they detuned us to A440 so that we would all go, we would all lose the perfection of music in our nervous systems. And so I was really curious why the monument, the monument isn't 432 hertz, but if you take 432 hertz and you count 10 octaves up, you're at the frequency that the monument puts off. So it means it's a 432 octave tuner.
And what's the frequency, David, supposed to do to us when we hear it?
Well, that's what I mean, George, because when the Egyptians, if you go to the Bible, Isaiah chapter 19, there's a description where the God of the Bible is saying to erect a pillar at the border of the land of Egypt, and I believe it would have been Assyria, and a temple to the Lord God. And when these obelisk pillars went up, they gave off a notable frequency that affected the consciousness of the civilization around them. And what I find fascinating is that every single invention, I mean even the LED flat panel TVs, the internet, which is Robert Kahn, Vinton Cerf, developed the first transmission protocol for the internet. The transistor, Bratton Shockley Bardeen, that's Bell Labs, that's New Jersey. In fact, Bell Labs invents the laser. Even solar panels were invented. The first solar panels were invented at Bell Labs. So this Edison is in New Jersey, Tesla is in New Jersey, Bell Labs is in New Jersey, and then all these other inventions, if I just took a compass and I go within my 200 nautical mile bubble around the monument, I can find all of them. And then the patents subsequently get distributed across the planet, and other universities and other scientists in Europe start looking at them, and they start having their cooperative insights into them, and the technologies evolve on a planetary scale, but their inception.
What are you concluding, David, with all these very bizarre happenings?
Well, what I'm concluding is just like in the Bible, that Washington of course, George Washington's the first president in the United States, and he was a master mason. He was a genius, and I believe it was his vision in the future to build this monument, not as a monument, because when you know the precise mathematics of the way an antenna works is, if it was off by a foot, it wouldn't be a 432 tuner, right? It's 555 feet, 5.125 inches tall. So all you do is take that times 4, draw a square, take the speed of light in inches divided by that, and you got your frequency. And then, so I think I sent Lex 2 graphics.
Yeah, we've got them posted. They're on the website.
So one of them shows a graphic of the actual frequency, and if you come 10 octaves down, you're at the master 432. So we know, like radio astronomers, in fact, radio astronomy is born at Bell Labs by Carl Jansky. I mean, remember the movie Contact with Jodie Foster?
Yep.
Saying how many Janskys are coming in? That's Carl Jansky. That's Bell Labs, New Jersey, right? It's all happening. It's not happening in Australia. It's not happening in fact, even when Bell invents the telephone, he's in the upper east of Canada, and he comes into the United States to actually do the real work. When Tesla came to the United States to work for Edison in New Jersey, and the monument is like, it's almost like the monument was calling him to come here, because there's going to be an energy field here that's going to give birth to the genius of the world. And
but David, what does it do?
It's sending out that frequency all the time. So anybody who comes around it, I mean, look, even the invention of the atomic bomb, it's not. There's a whole bunch of guys involved in it. It's first developed within my bubble region by an American scientist, and then Glenn Seaborg, and then the Manhattan Project, of course, happens in Santa Fe, New Mexico. But the inception of the discovery based on Einstein's letter, actually happens. I think I have the scientist's name here in a second. Alfred O. C. Neer. I mean, I studied this stuff when I worked for the Advanced Physics Corporation, for Magwitch and Seaborg and Murray Gell-Mann and all of them. So basically, O.C. Neer discovers at Princeton. He discovers U-235 at Princeton, which leads to the atomic bomb, and then the bomb is developed. The Russians had a spy implanted at Los Alamos. It's amazing how this happens, George. Most Americans have no clue how the Russians got involved in this whole mess with the threat of looming right now of an atomic, warfare situation. So they steal the bomb because they have a spy inside at Los Alamos, and their spy stays there undiscovered. The Russians test the bomb, I think it was 1946, right? So Trinity was July 1945, right? And then Hiroshima and Nagasaki were in August of the same year. And then what happens, Kate? You're going to see a huge tie-in here later tonight. I'm kind of going really fast here, but you're going to see a tie-in to both the Roswell incident and the Washington 1952 UFO buzz over the Capitol, the monument, and the White House. So you're going to see a whole tie-in here. And it's really, really amazing.
All right, but back to that 432. What's it for?
Well, 432, and many of your people in your audience know what I'm talking about right now. If we retuned our middle A note and all our pianos and all our guitars, and we shifted our entire music scale accordingly to 432, they've actually demonstrated that you can actually heal people with these frequencies. So what I've done is I've made all the frequencies for people because I believe these frequencies not only heal, but they also open up the creative potential of the human psyche. And that's why all these inventions happened within this bubble, and they continue to happen. It's still happening. Einstein comes from Germany, and he doesn't even have a degree. Einstein never had a PhD in physics, and he comes to the same place. He comes right inside the bubble, Princeton, New Jersey. He's right there, and that's where he does, this huge body of his life work for almost 23 years. He was there, right? So the number of what interests me is genius. A birthing of inventions is not uniform across the planet. It doesn't happen in California. Those people get the patents of these major inception inventions that happen within my bubble. They study them, and they're able to bring them into a different state of evolution. But you don't have inception. All of your inception, even Motorola, they're in my bubble, right? Everybody is in my bubble, even the birth of television and Farnsworth, and Vladimir Zworykin invents the cathode ray tube right there. He was the life vice president of RCA Television. In fact, Magwitch knew Zworykin really well. So Magwitch incepts his inception of his deuterium-helium-3 cubic meter nuclear fusion reactor that would have changed the history of the world. His inception is right there, Princeton, New Jersey, right there inside my bubble. And then he eventually moves to California, where he met me, and we started working together. I worked with Magwitch until the day he died.
Hold on, David. We're up at a break coming up in just a second or two. David's website is linked up at coasttocoastam.com, but take a look at a couple of the graphics that he has sent to Lex, that Lex has posted in the highlight reel at coasttocoastam.com. But we'll be back in a moment with more as we talk about what's going on at the Washington Monument. We'll take your calls next hour with David Sereda as we talk about strange things happening at the Washington Monument and the life of Nikola Tesla. We'll talk about the death ray that he had tried to invent. Wonder whatever happened to those plans. Think about that. Welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with David Sereda. So, David, this Washington Monument, do you think it's still emitting signals?
Oh, absolutely. Because, there's a scientist also, in the same region named Nathan Stubenfeld, who actually transmitted radio frequencies through the Earth's crust, and his invention also is around the same time period as Tesla's invention of radio. And basically what he found is you could hammer a steel spike into the ground, just like the frame of the Washington Monument, and he found there's power there. There's real energy. And because he found energy in multiple places tapping these steel spikes into the ground, he could send frequencies or, messages through the Earth. So the monument, or actually any building with a steel frame in the Earth, is getting powered by the Earth frequency itself, known as the Tesla-Schumann series of frequencies. So that means it's giving off this frequency wave and forming a bubble ever since it was created. And that's why these inventions continue to appear within this bubble. And these are the transformative inventions. These aren't just little things. These are the big ones. Like, why wasn't the internet invented in Russia, for example? Why didn't the Russians invent the atomic bomb? Why didn't the Chinese? They ended up stealing it, right? Because so what is it about America is the question I was asking myself, that all these great earth-shattering inventions happened first and not somewhere else. And I believe the monument, just like in the book of Isaiah chapter 19, and how the Egyptians put up these obelisk transmitters, it caused a transmission of a series of frequencies into people's consciousness. And it's kind of like Pythagoras called the human body a musica humana, a human musical instrument. And we are like instruments, right? If you play music,
sure,
and it's out of tune, you're not going to want to dance. But when you hear music that is really beautiful and properly, timed and tuned, you have emotions, you have feelings, you feel moods and you dance and you move your body. So what 432 is about is like you go on your piano and you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? So you have 7 basic notes. The black keys are your flats and sharps.
But I assume, though, David, you're saying what this does is it increases creativity.
Right, in healing. It's been proven that if you're not even shifting, like an A note today, and now a lot of people are using 432 middle A, right? So again, A is that first key on the piano. So or the guitar. And if it's detuned at A440, which is what we tend to use today, and you change it to 432, what people are saying is, oh my God, I like the music so much better. I have so many more incredible feelings inside of me, right? But what happens with each note, A, B, C, D, F, G, is you can go up an octave, right? That's what do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do is. That's 8 octaves. So you can take A, and then an octave means you take the frequency times 2 to go up, or divided by 2 to go down, right? So A440 would go down to A220 hertz, which is a lower tone, right? Or if you go up, it would be 880. So what I did is when I calculated the frequency that the monument would give off as an antenna, which was 442,709.351 hertz, I divided that by 10 octaves. So I came down, and I'm at 432.333, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a 432 scale tuner. And it's been putting this frequency off ever since. However, with the arrival, at the time of its inception, it was probably more powerful for the first, 50 years, because eventually we put up all these microwave towers everywhere, and they're kind of drowning out the field, right? They're putting in frequencies that we're transmitting, cell phone towers and internet that are actually much higher octaves than this, because this is a very low frequency compared to today's microwave towers, and they're causing distortion in the field. So the question is whether we'll continue to see these enormous breakthroughs, within my bubble. But all the big ones, these are the biggest ones in history. There's all the rest of the inventions on the planet are small stuff. They're little fine-tuning improvements. And there's more of them than I can even name. Like, for example, the laser at Bell Labs. The laser is a major earth-shattering invention. Radio is a major, and television is a major earth-shattering invention. The automobile, the birth of flight in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, which is in these are the big ones, right? So I found through my years of research that frequency alters consciousness for the betterment of humanity, or even the destruction of the human mind, more than anything.
It could go either way, right?
It could go either way. In fact, the Washington Monument could even be detuned by some hacker, right, who could hit it with some really bad frequencies, which is like bad music. You remember those experiments that Masaru Emoto did with water, where
right.
He
played pleasant music and harsh music, and the water crystals looked gorgeous, or they looked discombobulated.
Exactly. So if you have nice 432 tuned music, then you're going to have nice crystals, which again, your body's made mostly of water, right? So that means that humans, as a musical instrument, we like certain frequencies and we don't like certain frequencies. And maybe by using detuned frequencies on the population, you'll see more violence and you'll see more crime, right? But what also is interesting too is that the monument, if you take the monument, and there's another diagram up on your site that demonstrates this, and this is its hidden code, is that if I use the monument's height, 555 feet, 5.125 inches, and I draw 2 circles that diameter, Now, if you look on the lawn, on the grass feature of the monument, you'll see what I'm talking about. There's two circles. They come together in their midsection, and they form what's called the Vesica Pisces, which is like an elliptical. It looks like an eye, right? And you see this on the lawn, which means somebody knows what I'm about to tell you, because the monument is taller than the Great Pyramid of Egypt. But if I make two circles whose diameter is the height of the monument, 555 feet and 5.125 inches, the Vesica Pisces is the exact finished height of the Great Pyramid of Egypt. And that means whoever built it and whoever decided on its final height knew a secret greater than Dan Brown's Law Symbol, right? Dan Brown's Law Symbol series ends in this, this new TV series that came out. It ends with the Washington Monument being the greatest secret holder, but it doesn't know what the secret is. So if the monument and the grass feature on the lawn, which is the Vesica Pisces, is the monument's greatest secret, that it is really the mother frequency of the Great Pyramid of Egypt, then of course the obelisks come from Egypt, right? And then you go all the way to the Vatican. So at the Vatican, this is going to be really mind-blowing, because the Vatican's height is St. Peter's Basilica, designed by Michelangelo, who's one of the chief architects, is the same height as the Great Pyramid of Egypt is today without its capstone.
Without the tip, right?
Without the tip. Whereas the Washington Monument's height, when you make two circles and they form the Vesica Pisces in the middle, the graphic is up on your website for people to see. The height of the Vesica Pisces is the exact height of the Great Pyramid of Egypt. But why would the Vatican make St. Peter's the height of the pyramid? Because it's accurate to 99.98%. It's off by like a foot in a few inches, and what they intended to do, because in the courtyard of the Vatican is another obelisk that looks like the Washington Monument, but it's smaller. So I did the math on that one, and it turns out it's an A on the piano 444 A note transmitter, and John Lennon apparently tuned his guitar to A444 for some reason. So why is that one A44 and the monument's A432? And what does that do to human consciousness? And
could this frequency have been used to move the blocks of the pyramids?
Well, see, when you get into what's his name in Florida, Lee Skellnan, right?
Lead Skellnan, Edward Lead Skellnan.
There's a great secret there. If you look at the top of his pyramidal poles, you'll see a box, which is where people think he had a frequency transmitter. And I measured the box's ratio. It is an Ark of the Covenant ratio. And this is where my work is going now. I have decoded what I believe is the God frequency of the Holy of Holies in the Ark of the Covenant, and I think Skellnan knew it. Now, I haven't used the frequencies yet that I've decoded in the Ark of the Covenant and the Holy of Holies, but the fact that the pyramid, a lot of people don't know what I'm about to tell you. The pyramid's queen chamber and king's chamber are the exact same measurement as Moses' original Holy of Holies when it was a tabernacle, when it was a tent. So there was a 10 by 10 by 10 cubit tent, and we know in the book of Ezekiel that God uses the royal cubit, the long cubit, which is a cubit plus a hand, because that's what it says in Ezekiel. So the queen's chamber is the exact same measurement in the Great Pyramid as Moses' original Holy of Holies, where the Ark of the Covenant was stored. Now, in the Kebra Nagast, the Ethiopian Book of Kings, it says the Ark of the Covenant levitated the Israelites' luggage. Levitated their luggage. So why does Lee Skellnan look at the top of the pole there? If you look at the ratio of the Ark of the Covenant is a Fibonacci 3-5 ratio, which is 1 to 1.666666, right?
Now tie this in, David, to Tesla's death ray. Was his ray based on vibration?
Oh yeah, the Tesla death ray. The theory is, okay, so when the FBI investigated Tesla's death, and I got a copy of all those declassified files, I found my boss's name in there, Magwitch. Why? Because he was from Yugoslavia, and they thought he knew something about the death rate. And when I interviewed my friend Boyd Bushman, the Lockheed Martin senior scientist of 20 years, who told me that a friend of his was a Navy doctor who treated a pilot from radiation burns who had just used Tesla death ray to shoot down the Roswell saucer. We know that according to the Tesla files, that the death ray was taken to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, right? And believe it or not, Wright-Patterson is inside of my bubble within the monument.
Is it still there?
Is what still there?
The death ray.
Oh, we've developed a death ray that is way beyond the original death ray. Now, the death ray, according to Tesla, could annihilate an army of 100,000 soldiers at once.
Jeez.
So that would be one of I believe it is the weapon, and Boyd Bushman confirmed this in an interview with me, that we're using to shoot down these unknown UAP UFOs. And that's one of the reasons the UFOs don't get that close anymore. You don't hear stories like you used to of landings that are close.
I was just saying that too this week, David, that we don't get landing pads and all those things. We used to see scorched out, burned areas of grass and fields.
I know a professor at Santa Monica College I interviewed. I'm trying to remember his last name. His first name was David. He and his girlfriend were in Phoenix, Arizona, and his girlfriend's dad worked at the radio tower in the airport in Phoenix, and they came upon a UFO in a field. It was hovering a few feet off the ground. And I mean, this is a professor at Santa Monica College telling me this. And they got close to it. They could see it. The UFO I saw in Berkeley in 1968 was close. It was hovering above, the Berkeley campus. You don't see that much anymore.
No, you don't.
Because of the weapon I think Tesla developed the death ray. Our military was satisfied with the development. He was murdered, even though he was 87 years old. And the death ray is taken to Wright-Pat, and that's where they developed it. And when we detonated the atomic bomb at Trinity Site, New Mexico, we opened up a time dilation portal, which is why you have 3 UFO crash sites on all sides of the Trinity Site. That's where we were chasing these UFOs on radar, and we shot them down. This is a very different theory than them getting struck by lightning from a lightning storm. I don't believe lightning would take them down. Absolutely, I don't believe that. And also, the last time I was on your show, we were talking about the case that I have, the photographs and the email testimony that the Space Shuttle Columbia was taken out by some kind of a weapon, and we can see it getting hit by this weapon. And again, was that weapon ET or was it a demonstration? Which would be a very cruel thing.
Looks like a lightning bolt or something, doesn't it?
Yeah, but lightning has tentacles. No, this thing's way too slow to be lightning. The thing that hit the Columbia, it's lightning is way too fast to have been this. And lightning, you can't get 3 pictures of the same lightning strike. I mean, this guy got.
You're lucky to even get one.
You're lucky to get one. I mean, this guy is pressing his shutter on a tripod in San Francisco Bay Area, and he's getting pictures of this thing coming in and chasing the Columbia. The Columbia is doing 17,500 miles an hour, and this thing incoming is peaking at 60,000 miles an hour. So lightning is somewhere around, oh my God, I don't have my notes in front of me. It's way past that. So what hit the Columbia was definitely not a lightning strike. There's no tentacles. It course corrects and turns 90 degrees when it misses the Columbia and then hits it.
David, hold on. We're going to take a quick break. At the top of the hour, we're going to come back and take phone calls with you on Coast to Coast. This hour, we'll take your calls with David Sereda as we talk about anomalies at the Washington Monument and other strange mysteries right here on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back. George Norrie with you, along with David Sereda. David, what happened to Tesla's files?
Well, there's a cubic meter of Tesla's files that were sent to the University at Belgrade and Yugoslavia, the former Yugoslavia, which is now divided into Bosnia and Serbia. But Magwitch told me, that he had access to them. They don't allow anyone to photocopy them. Scientists can come in there and read them, learn from them, but there's no way. Magwitch told me you could read all those notes because you'd have to photocopy them and spend years studying them. And also, when the Battle of the Currents happened, Edison firebombed Tesla's lab in New Jersey, and Tesla said he never recovered from the losses in his experiments that he was working on in that lab. So Edison was very jealous. He had no reason to be because he invented the phonograph, the motion picture, the first light bulbs which flickered, and Tesla, invented neon lighting and fluorescent lighting, radio, alternating current remote control.
But they didn't get along, did they, Edison and Tesla?
There was a jealousy there. There's a competitiveness. Even though Edison hires Tesla, there's a competitiveness, and then Tesla goes out on his own, and J.P. Morgan finances him, and then Tesla's ideas got too powerful and too exotic, and some of them were Tesla demonstrated a faster-than-light radio signaling, and he said he was receiving extraterrestrial signals from Venus or Mars. And so today, if you use Tesla's patent on faster-than-light radio, probably the military is using that for secure channeling, right? And as far as the Tesla death rate, I believe we have it. I had access, and because of who I was working for, to many of America's top secret labs. I got into Rand Corporation one day and did some work there. And I was helping a woman build a brochure on how to use. Thing was the size of an M16. It was a laser gun. It was a Star Wars type handheld, laser that they could destroy things. So when you think of the Tesla death rate and you think of handheld lasers, being a derivative of that on a smaller scale, it's very, very feasible. But yet you don't see them in the media as far as what we understand that the military actually has. So when you look at the situation with Russia. So you come 68 years after the monument is erected, you come to the U.S. Capitol buzzing, which was on the cover of Time magazine. Again, it was July 1952. Interesting that it's July, just like Roswell, and there were two.
Right, 5 years later, of course.
Right, and only 3 months after 1952, the United States tests the H-bomb, which was invented by Edward Teller, and again, it was top secret at Los Alamos, and this Russian spy was still in there, and he sends the H-bomb to Russia. Russia builds a bigger H-bomb, the Tsar Bomba. And that's when, before the Cuban Missile Crisis, what really drove it was the Russians stole everything. I mean, imagine all the work that went into building the first atomic bomb and the H-bomb. They get both of them free. And then the United States, of course, is terrified. So the United States put missiles in Turkey pointing at Russia and missiles in Europe pointing at Russia. The Russians are terrified. So then they send their missiles to Cuba.
Yep, and it started. 1962 was a tough year.
I was born in 61, so I mean, if it wasn't for Kennedy's incredible tactfulness.
And Khrushchev's, they both worked together.
Yeah, we wouldn't be here. It would have been all over. So when I look at the situation today, I mean, the news media doesn't seem to understand this. The Russians didn't invent this stuff. And they don't want U.S. missiles pointing at them today. Well, you freaking stole everything, right? And the Chinese stole everything. And it's the same thing. Every one of these inventions I'm talking about that were birthed within this bubble of the monument, the Americans shared openly with the world. None of those countries would have benefited from these inventions because they didn't figure it out. But when the first person figures it out, and then everybody gets their hands in there, they can make little improvements and make things a little bit different and start to evolve. But what interests me the most is why America First and why within my bubble around the monument. So I believe it's frequency. I can't prove that, but I don't have any other data to go on.
Interesting. Let's take some calls for you, David. Let's go to Marcia in Los Gatos, California, west of the Rockies. Hey, Marcia, thanks for calling.
Hey, George. Good to hear your voice.
Thank you.
Well, David, I would like to reap your mind. And I want to know what you think. I have two questions. One is, with the pyramids out in the desert and the sand and silica would blow up against it and be heated by the sun and make a glass covering over the top, would that change the frequency?
Well, see, the pyramid's frequency, so again, the Queen's Chamber is the same exact measurement as Moses' original Holy of Holies in the Tabernacle. And extending beyond the Holy of Holies was what's called the Holy Place, which is a 10 by 20 cubit tent. And that's the King's Chamber. The King's Chamber is 10 by 20 cubits. But then when you calculate and you realize that there's a connection between the Great Pyramid of Egypt and the God of the Bible, you understand why the Vatican made St. Peter's Basilica the height of the Great Pyramid of Egypt. But then you get into frequency. And many, over a decade and a half ago, I decoded all the frequencies that the Great Pyramid would transmit as a giant crystal oscillator when it had its original limestone casing. But you're asking if the silica, you see, you have your radioactive granite core masonry, which actually contains aluminum and iron, believe it or not, so it wasn't a non-conductive core. Then you have your casing stones, and your casing stones are I'm just trying to remember the name of the stone. Kind of my mind's blanking it out for some reason. I have too many
limestones.
Limestone. So you have your limestone. There's two different types of limestone. There's 144,000 limestone casing blocks. And you know what's interesting? 432 and 144 it's 144 times 3 is 432, right? And so when you get into the idea of the silica, which is a tetrahedron under the microscope. It's a three-sided pyramid. And then you're getting into deeper and deeper questions about frequency, right? Would it change the frequency? No, it wouldn't, because your wavelength is your frequency. You take the speed of light in inches divided by your wavelength in inches, and you got your frequency. So when I calculated all the frequencies of the Great Pyramid, and I looked at the numbers going up this thing as a slope tuner, I found a music scale that was superior to our modern music scale today. There are many music scales that would be very beneficial to generate music and healing and altering consciousness.
Let's go back to Marcia for her second question. Go ahead, Marcia.
Thank you so much. David, now going over toward radios, do you have a Skywave at home? Do you have a CC?
I have
C Crane
radios here. George had Jimmy Blanchett and myself on, and Jimmy was getting phenomenal things happening at 432 megahertz and 144.1 megahertz. Phenomenal things happening. And actually, to answer your question, I have radios here, yes. But when you say a Skywave radio, I'm not sure exactly what you mean.
No, that's a C Crane radio, one of our clients, David.
Oh, a C Crane radio. No, I don't.
What was your question, though, Marsh?
Question is, if he takes a Skywave radio and he holds it up to a candelabra with two batteries in it, that Skywave radio will start singing.
Oh, really? Wonder what it sings like. That's interesting. I got to try that with one of mine. Thanks, Marcia. Brian in Indianapolis. Take it away, Brian.
Hey, George, that C Crane radio sings like you.
It could be my voice. You never know.
You never know. Hey, listen, one thing I learned tonight, I didn't miss the story about the Space Shuttle Challenger being hit by a death ray. I'm going to look that up. But I got a good question here tonight. I'm interested in what David thinks about Nikola Tesla's obsession with the numbers 3, 6, and 9. Now, he lived I believe it was a New Yorker hotel for decades on the 33rd floor in room 3327, which equals 3 and 3 is 6, 2 and 7 is 9. He would walk around buildings 3 times before going in. He would wash his plates 6 times before, or cleaning them, whatever, before putting them up. So he said that these 3 numbers were the key to the universe. Now, David, can you explain to the Coast audience what he meant by that, and do you think these 3 numbers are the key to the universe?
Well, my take on the 369 is this. I measured the Ark of the Covenant using the proper inches to royal cubit and using the long cubit because Ezekiel says the cubit of God is a cubit plus a hand. And you won't believe it. My angles on the Ark of the Covenant were 30 and 60 and 90 degrees on all my corners, 3, 6, 9. So, again, there's Lead Scowlin with this. It looks like an ark. I mean, sitting on top of the poles. And does he know the secret of the Ark of the Covenant? Because in the Keber Nagast.
Well, he did say that he knew the secrets of the pyramids.
Well, this is what I mean. So is it a combination of his magnetic field generators and a particular frequency? So I decided that the breastplate of Aaron is like a square radio receiver transmitter, just like when you see these round satellite dishes. The wavelength is the circumference of the dish. So I measured the square circumference of the breastplate of Aaron, and you won't believe the number I got. I took the speed of light divided by the square, 432 megahertz, which is the same number that Jimmy Blanchett uses on his radios. And so is there, I mean, why would it be 432 again? Is that God's frequency? Is there, I think there's more to it. The secret, the breastplate of Aaron would receive a square wave at 432 megahertz perfectly. Why that number again? The same number I'm seeing in the monument, right? So what is it about it? Is it something that opens up consciousness? Do you need this particular frequency in addition to the magnetic field? Because Scowlin had the magnet wheels. You know, he had the kind of rotor and
and he also wrote a book on magnetism, David. So you're pretty close to that.
I've seen that. So if you spin magnets, you'll generate a spinning magnetic field. You can measure it on a magnetometer. I've done this. So you also note that his limestone, what were his blocks? Coral calcium. So calcium is paramagnetic. It's a paramagnetic metal, which means it will turn into a magnet in a magnetic field. So that means when you see these UFOs levitating cows and elk, like in this movie,
Right. They put it like in a force field.
Right. So the calcium in your bones will turn into a magnet in a very dense magnetic field. So you can lift a cow, you can lift a human, like Travis Walton. So that means, again, Lead Scowlin's blocks are coral calcium. So did he magnetize the calcium, but he needed the frequency of the Ark of the Covenant in addition to it? I don't know. I look at all the data, look at everything on the table, and I see, what is the answer? We know the Ark of the Covenant levitated the Israelites' luggage, and it levitated other things. So there's something about the Ark that corresponded to anti-gravity effects.
Let's go to Mayat in New York. Mayat, take it away. You're on with David Sereda.
Good morning, gentlemen. Excellent program, George. David, I have a 3-parter for you, and I'll listen over the air, so just please make a note. First of all, there has been a guest or two on Coast who have advocated for changing all music, I guess retuning it to 432 and raising consciousness and sort of being an evolutionary catalyst, if you will, which is greatly needed. Second, I'd like further clarification around the Washington Monument. You're using the term anomalies, but this sounds like from the beginning intended. And just clarify whether there needs to be some correction with the monument. And lastly, are you familiar with Lewis Latimer, who brought the carbon element that made Edison's light bulb practicable, I guess, and doable? And that's my three questions, and thank you for your work, and thank you, George.
All right, start with number one, music and 432, David.
Yeah, there's a huge movement out there of people and musicians who are tuning their guitars and their harps. So you're just shifting your A note from 440 vibrations per second to 432. But that means all your other notes, A, B, C, D, F, G, all have to shift accordingly and proportionally to have a properly tuned, complete music scale. And I've actually done that mathematically, so that you could actually build a scale. And the movement for this has already started. I'm not the one who started it. What amazed me is when I saw the breastplate of Aaron at 432 megahertz, and I saw the monument is again, it doesn't middle A at 432 means that's one octave of A. So you can go up times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 until you reach the end of human hearing. And you can keep going until, like radio astronomers, George, have actually measured certain stars emitting radio frequencies and correspond it to a music scale, because it'll be an ultra-high A, B, or C, or D note, right? So this star is a super high D note. You can't hear those frequencies, but they still are part of the scale. So what I'm saying is that there's a whole scale there for 432 megahertz. And I'm decoding it right now, the whole thing. It's my newest work, because I think that is the master frequency of the Bible.
Her second question had to do with the monument in the shape of it, if they could make any corrections to it. What do you think?
Well, if it's been detuned, I've gotten right into the math on the aluminum pyramidium that's sitting on the top, and when I know the secret to the pyramidium on the top. The people who designed this were such masters. They were masters beyond masters. Again, the monument's diameter, 2 circles, the Vesica Pisces it forms, is the height of the Great Pyramid when it was finished with its capstone. Like, who could have known that back then, right? How did they know this stuff? And there it is. If you look on the grass on the lawn, it's in the photograph I put up on the site, and you can see that somebody designed the lawn to form a Vesica Pisces, and the monument's coming out of the middle of the Vesica Pisces, which means somebody in Washington knows the same secret that I know, that I'm telling you tonight. And her last question was about the filament and Edison.
And we'll do that when we come back. That was Lewis Latimer, who invented the improved carbon filament for light bulbs. We'll see what you have to say, and we'll take final calls next. And we'll be back with David Sereda and final phone calls here as we talk about his incredible discoveries, basically, about the Washington Monument and other issues. On our next Coast to Coast program, Robert Lanza joins us, the incredible physicist, and we'll be talking about quantum physics and how it changes humanity. Fascinating program there. And then Sarah Breskman-Cosme will join us to talk about hypnotism on Coast to Coast. And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with David Sereda, our final segment here, final calls. David, Mayat's final question was about Lewis Latimer, the American inventor. He was born in 1848, died in 1928, but he developed a better carbon filament for light bulbs.
Well, what amazes me, he was born in 1848, is the year the monument started construction. I think that's incredible.
Wow.
He's an African-American inventor. I'm looking probably what you're looking at here. He worked with Alexander Graham Bell, Hiram S. Maximum, Thomas Edison. I wonder if he ever got to meet Tesla. He played a critical role in the development of the telephone. So remember, when the first inception invention happens, it's all these other scientists come in and they make these improvements. In fact, his Lewis H. Latimer house is well within my bubble. So he did his work well within the bubble that I'm talking about. And he's born the year of the birth of the monument.
That's bizarre. Let's go to calls again. Let's go to Sherry in Gold Bar, Washington. Welcome to the program. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, good evening, you guys.
Good to have you with us. Go ahead.
Hey, gracious one. What I have is a real fear of these cell phones, and I believe they're going to use them towards us with malice. I have a high-pitched ringing most all the time in my ears, but I worked with a power company for 15 years, George, and like I said, we're in really bad trouble. So I was just wondering if you guys knew anything about that or would be.
What are you thinking about the power of cell phones, David?
Well, I mean, a lot of people get tinnitus, which is the ringing in the ear. I don't hold your cell phone to your ear. Use it on speaker and don't touch it. I mean, I've measured the radiation coming off of cell phones. It's not that strong if you're using a cell phone in the country somewhere, but when you get in a city and you walk around with a meter like I have measuring all the microwaves, it's brutal. So it's important that it doesn't touch your body. Even the earbud headphones, that's a direct connection to the brain. Just set it down, put it on speaker, and communicate that way, and you'll be a lot safer. Holding it to the ear for long periods of time can I don't personally believe that's healthy at all.
Let's go to Don, Alberta, Canada. Hey, Donald, welcome to the show.
Hi, George. Hi, David. Do I have half an hour? No. Anyway, the 1936 Purus Arrow that Nikola Tesla drove around for 3 years, and he said it got electricity out of the air, and I was wondering if it has to do with that being within 200 miles of the obelisk and why it worked. Hans Kroller, a German engineer, at the end of the year, the end of the war, he had a generator with no moving parts, one battery to start it, one battery to run it, would produce 6 kilowatts. One of my other questions is after Roswell, my understanding was the death ray, is it just a microwave that they modified the frequency? Because after Roswell, they shot down those 3 UFOs, Roswell and the other two. The United States, in the next year and a half, I think it was, they lost over 5,000 U.S. military aircraft worldwide. So I was just wondering if that was a little bit of a revenge thing going on. And the Columbia, you were talking about it, there's a really good video. It's been picked apart and everything, but it's taken from space, and it actually shows the Columbia being damaged before entry. I don't know if you know anything about that. And what else was there? Well,
let's get some answers first, Don. Go ahead.
Well, that's going to take a half an hour to go through all this stuff, and they're very, very, good questions. I mean, a lot of the free energy devices that were developed, I know some of the scientists personally, and you have to understand, once you have an inception invention and the patent is distributed and the learning is distributed, then people start working on it in a lot of different places. So, Tesla worked in New Jersey. His lab was in New Jersey, and then he also worked in Colorado Springs. He was kicked out of Colorado because he actually did an experiment that tapping into the Earth's resonant energy, he shorted all of the transformers in the state of Colorado, blew them all up.
Power outage in Colorado Springs, huh?
Yeah, and then he went to New York after that, right? So there's something about this inception is like the womb. It's like a bubble, and the life-changing inventions are happening there. Now, if you put up a monopole obelisk that had the precise height and measurements and put off the right frequency, you might start to see this happening in other places, and you do. In fact, a lot of the Egyptian obelisks were distributed. There's one in Paris, France, I believe. There's, I believe, one in the United Kingdom. They've been kind of shared and moved around. And again, I go to Isaiah 19:19, where it talks, where God is saying to erect a pillar to the Lord God on the border. And when you see the same measurements in the Great Pyramid of Egypt as you see in the time of Moses and the Holy of Holies in Solomon's Temple, you start to wonder if the architect is one and the same. In fact, it was the Great Pyramid decoded by Peter Le Mesurier. He deducted the same thing I did. In the end, I've made huge mathematical discoveries in the Great Pyramid that go beyond Le Mesurier's, but he deducted the same thing, that the architect of the pyramid is one and the same as the God of the Bible. So that, when you get into Tesla and free energy ideas, there's nothing I know that Tesla did that was a greater free energy source than tapping into the Earth's motor, basically. I mean, the Earth's resonant frequency, if you can ride that wave like a surfer, there's so much power there, it's unbelievable. And when this other scientist I mentioned earlier tonight, just trying to remember his name, he went around hammering these rods into the ground. He found there's power in many places on the Earth, which means he confirmed what Tesla is saying. There's a way to draw energy right out of the Earth, and it's not solar energy. It is a form of perpetual energy. But when Tesla did it in Colorado, he's shorting out all the transformers in the state. They should have taken interest in that and said, we need to build better transformers to be able to absorb this energy you're tapping into, because this would be the ultimate power source. So, there's people who make claims about Tesla that it's hard to verify it with a patent. I've read every book there is on Tesla. I was director of the Tesla Foundation in Los Angeles, appointed by an MIT PhD, Bogdan Magwitch. I still have a copy of my letter of appointment. I can't say I agree with everything that everybody's posting about Tesla out there. There's a lot of stuff.
Next up, let's go to first-time caller Brian in Denver, Colorado. Hey, Brian, go ahead.
Hey, how you doing?
Great. Thanks for holding.
Yeah, I'd like to ask David, I think his work on frequency is stellar. But when I went to get car insurance, they said that 95% of accidents happened around my house. And I told them 95% of my driving's around my house. So when he talks about the monuments being there, I think most of the institutions that bring about this technology is around these monuments. And you did a show on inventions, George, and you showed that people from different parts of the world got the same inventions at the same time.
Yes.
And I'd like to ask him about that.
Well, see, that's like what do they call that? The 10th monkey or the 100th monkey theory is once there's an inception invention.
It's like consciousness is floating everywhere, David.
Yeah, we can see little bits of it. Like, again, there's three guys that invented radio. It was the U.S. Supreme Court ruling June 21st, 1943, that Marconi, using Tesla's patents, broadcast across the Atlantic. He also, it was Sir Oliver Lodge, Tesla, and Stone who got credit for radio. But actually, it's in the shared presence. Again, if you look at the transistor, it's Will Bratton, Will Shockley, and John Bardeen. And again, it was done at Bell Labs, which is New Jersey, right inside my bubble. But there were three guys who were having the insights, and they came together. And then eventually, it was taken over at Stanford University, and in California, and it went to a whole other level. The transistor changed the entire world. So did the crystal oscillator. So consciousness can make that leap. But when you look for inception, the moment that the first form, because the first transistor was a pretty crude-looking thing. It was like not very impressive-looking thing. But still, they demonstrated it. That's what I mean by inception. So there's inception, and then it starts to hop around, and other people start spinning it in their consciousness, and they make it better, and they make it better, and they make it better. And we taught basically the Chinese and the Japanese used to make our first transistor radios. I mean, they're the ones, we had them do it. We taught them everything they know. They make our cell phones and our computers today. And then they stole, they have the ability to spy on us because they make everything, and they got into our military and they're able to steal some of our greatest secrets. I mean, on the greatest secret level and on the level of inception, we don't know right now what the next big thing's going to be. I mean, when the internet was developed, that was Robert Kahn and Vinton Cerf developed the first transmission controlled protocol for the internet in the 70s. Again, that's right inside my bubble. But then it got spun. You know, it started to go into the minds of other people, and it became what we have today, the internet. So what is the next big thing going to be? You know, I don't know. But I know that the data says that the inception and all the big stuff, the inception moment happened in the bubble, and then it spread. And then it spread outside the bubble.
Let's go to UFO Jim in Canyon Country, California. Hey, Jim, go ahead.
Hi, George. It's a pleasure to talk to you again.
Thank you, sir.
I admire David Sereda. I was on the show with you a night that he called in just after me about Moses' staff.
Yes.
And I wish he would expand on that a little bit. And I've got a couple other quick comments.
If we have time, we'll come back to you, but we've got about a minute and a half left. David, go ahead.
Well, the staff is the same thing. I mean, if you go on davidsereda.co, you can see that we're making these things for customers now. It's 2.5 cubits. The Bible says that the staff lay in the ark, and the ark is 2.5 cubits. And if you read Ezekiel, you understand that God only uses the long cubit, the cubit in the hand. So an antenna, whether it's small enough to fit in your hand like a staff, still acts as an antenna and interfaces with the human nervous system. In fact, a new article just came out in the Smithsonian that in the future they want to use humans as antennas. And so my theory is proven that the human nervous system and the human skeleton can interface with an antenna, and the staff of Moses and Aaron and the prophets, and Jesus actually in Mark 6:1-8 told the apostles they all had to have their staffs when he dispersed them to spread the gospels and do the healing. So that would mean that the staff has a frequency too, and I know what that frequency is. Of course, I've calculated it, and the people who use the staffs that we make work with that in meditation. So there has to be a reason for it. If Jesus urged the apostles in Mark 6:1-8, by the way, is the golden ratio, 6:1-8 is the golden ratio, then there has to be a reason for it. He wouldn't have. He said, no money in your purse, no sandals, no bread, no food, just your staff. That's what it says. So that means it's absolutely important to have it. So
well, you've come across some great stuff, David. You're absolutely brilliant. David's website linked up at coasttocoastam.com. Thank you, Mr. Sereda. For Dan Galante, Tom Danheiser, Lisa Lyon, Lex Lonehood, Sean Ladesseur, Stephanie Smith, Chris Burrows, Tim Banal, George Knapp, and Ian Punnett, I'm George Norrie, somewhere out there on Coast to Coast AM. We'll see you on our next edition. Until then, be safe, everyone.